Hello friends, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Rogan Freewolf, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, and today with this video we are beginning the first reading of a very special book. It was one of my favorite books growing up in my childhood, called The Tombs of Anak by Frank Peretti. And I'm going to read it to you in the relatively similar fashion that my father did to me. Except I didn't just get done eating, necessarily. Well, I mean, I did eat before coming out here, but I'm doing it outside as opposed to inside. Because it's such a beautiful day. But yeah, I was going to be a lot fancier with it, but you know what? I just don't have the time. I don't have the time. I just need other people to help me out with that stuff. So, keeping it plain and simple, without any further ado, well, I suppose we should keep up with the tradition, eh? Where, if I can find... Oh, you know what? I bet it's in here. Or in the other one. Or it's in my hoodie. Of course it is. Always the last place you look. I got stuff from the trees falling on me. Not pollen, thankfully. If you got a joint, join me. Or weed in any shape and size. Alright, and brief reminder, this is a Christian fantasy book. Oh yeah, I'm using a Chick Trek as a bookmark. Anyone recognize it? Alright. So I'm just going to read through it. I'll try to keep my comments saved for the end. And we're just going to do this chapter by chapter. And if there's any background noise, I apologize for that. I am a really, really good distance away from the road. Like, in the intro that you saw coming up to this tree, I was about halfway across the field from the road when I started filming that. So that's how far away I am from the street. And so if you could hear any loud vehicles, I've done the best I can. This is a really good tree at a good distance away. I love how freaking huge it is. That's what she said. Oh yeah, this is not a Christian channel, by the way. Just because we talk about Christian things, beliefs, and books, and their entertainment, it doesn't mean we walk around with sticks up our butts. Obviously. Alright, so without any further ado, let's get right into it. Chapter 1 of The Tombs of Anak. Oh yeah, and by the way, for copyright issues' sake and all that shit, I'm not doing this for money, okay? I'm not expecting to ever get paid by YouTube or anything. anymore. That's that's in the past. That's dead and gone. Any money that I get related to my videos is just donation. Okay, that's all it's gonna be, and towards my charity and all that shit. So this is just something that's being done for free, for entertainment's sake. What can I say but you're welcome? And besides, if I don't do this, who else is going to? I don't know if this has been recorded on audiobook. Maybe it has, but you know what? I'll bet they weren't doing it while stoned. So that makes this audio recording of this book special and unique. You'll probably never find such a recording of it anywhere else. Unless someone else gets a copy and does the same thing. Then, then we'll be in competition. Chapter 1 of the Tombs of Anak. "Hey, listen. I don't need to hear any more foolish talk about ghosts," said Jerry Frayden with a dusty slap against his thigh. "Dr. Cooper's entrusted this task to us, and I say we just get at it." "Nobody's talking about ghosts," Bill White drawled from under the brim of his hat. "We just don't want anyone to get hurt," Jeff Brannigan tried to explain. "And that goes especially for you." The three men stood in the middle of an archeological excavation in a small and narrow valley surrounded by rocky hills. They were wearing brown dust like a uniform. The hot noonday sun was baking their backs. Slow-talking Bill White was the team leader in the absence of their boss, Dr. Jake Cooper. Big Jeff Brannigan was the equipment specialist. Jerry Frayden was the first-time tag-along. Youthful upstart with more ambition than common sense. Their heated discussion was taking place around a man-sized, seemingly bottomless hole in the ground. A hole that hadn't been there 10 minutes ago. "Listen, this is something extraordinary. It could tell us something we never knew about the ancient Philistines." "Maybe," said Jeff, not too enthusiastically. Well, Jerry couldn't believe how these guys were dragging their feet. An incredible archaeological find opens up right in front of us, and you guys are just going to stand there? Well, now, just what interest would you have in archaeology? Aren't you and your money-minded bosses interested in something else that might be down there? "I say we wait until the doc gets back," said Bill with a shake of his head. "It just isn't worth the risk, Jerry." Jeff agreed. Jerry only grabbed the rope he secured to their portable winch and stepped toward the hole. "Suit yourselves. This discovery is going to be all mine." Bill put a firm hand on Jerry's shoulder. "Listen, you have no idea what's down there. We don't even know where this hole came from." Jerry only sneered at him. "Spooks, Mr. White. Remember?" Jeff had heard enough of Jerry's taunting. "Now listen here, Mr. Frayden, sir. We're letting you tag along just because the big bosses want you here. But you haven't been out on a lot of digs like we have. Most legends are just talk, sure, but behind every one of them is a little bit of truth, and it's wise to pay attention to everything you hear." "Well," said Jerry, tying the rope around his waist, "I'll buy the stuff we heard about ancient tombs being here. That makes plenty of sense." "Yeah, but you're forgetting, the ghost haunting this place, Mr. White? No. No, sir, to you too, Mr. Brannigan. That's where I draw the line." "Not a ghost, you stubborn youngster. That's what the locals talk about, but it could be traps, snares, vipers. Listen, people have been hurt in this place. Dr. Cooper would know more about what to expect down there. Are you going to lower me down, or do I have to do it myself? Jeff and Bill looked at each other, and both were sick to death of arguing with this kid. With sighs and shrugs, Jeff manned the winch and started uncranking the rope as Bill helped Jerry more carefully down into the narrow hole. "You be careful now, son," Jeff cautioned. "Where's your light?" Bill demanded. Jerry resented the question. "On my belt, Mr. White. Don't worry about it." "I still have a bad feeling about this," Bill muttered. Jeff made slow, steady turns on the winch as Jerry worked his way into the hole, one groping foothold at a time, disappearing from the waist down, then the chest, then the head, and finally the hat. Bill stood at the brink of the hole, feeding the rope down and peering after the cocky explorer. "Get that light on," he called. All right, came the echoing answer. Jeff let out more and more rope, and soon Bill could see nothing in the shaft but the occasional sweep of Jerry's flashlight. "How deep is this thing?" Bill wondered. "I've let out 40 feet of line," answered Jeff. Bill hollered down the shaft. "Jerry, can you see the bottom?" Jerry's voice sounded miles away as he called back, "Yeah, I think so." "Hey, you guys are gonna like this. There's a room down here, and..." The voice stopped abruptly, and Bill couldn't see the flashlight beam at all now. The rope quivered. "Jerry!" he hollered. The rope was still shaking, as if it had hooked a fighting fish. "Jerry!" Bill heard a scream, some rocks tumbling, clunking, another shrill cry. "Jerry!" Bill yelled again. He shouted to Jeff, "Haul him up, quick!" Jeff heaved the crank backward with a groan and gritted his teeth. "He's heavy! Come on, Bill, he's heavy!" Jeff was amazed at how heavy. Bill ran to help, and they both pulled on the winch with all their weight. It felt like a whale on the other end. Oof! Suddenly, they were both on their backs in the dust. The winch was spinning, squealing frantically, bringing up yards of loose flopping rope. They recovered, scrambled for the winch, hauling in more rope. The end of the rope flipped dramatically out of the hole like a whip and landed right in their laps. The end was cut, neatly, cleanly. They scurried to the edge of the pit and shined a light into the blackness. It was like looking down a deep, deep well. "Jerry!" Bill called again. Something answered, but it wasn't Jerry. The very sound of it chilled them and turned their stomachs from somewhere, down there, unseen, unknown. A voice, or a siren, or some animal cried out in long, wailing tones that bounced and echoed up the shaft like distant wolf howls. Low notes, then higher ones. A definite melody, an Eastern, melancholy scale. A mournful dirge that continued note after note after note. Then the melody faded, and it was only in the final silence that the men awoke from their horrified stupor. Jeff looked at Bill and spoke for the both of them. "Wait till the doc hears about this." Doc, a handsome and rugged man with blonde hair and probing blue eyes, was in Jerusalem at a large and impressive museum, sitting at a conference table with two important gentlemen who were behaving less and less gentlemanly. And he was beginning to wish he was back at the dig where he belonged. "I'm not sure I understand your impatience, Mr. Andrews," he said calmly to the man who seemed the most upset. Archaeology isn't done with a bulldozer. It's a craft. It's a craft of fastidious detail and close attention. You simply can't rush it. Mr. Andrews, a very cold-eyed, grim-faced man, was proud of his reputation and influence as an international dealer of ancient relics and artifacts, and he wasn't used to waiting for anything he wanted. "Dr. Cooper," he said, his eyes narrow, his face reddening, "you are highly recommended to us as a man who can produce results. You got excellent results from the last crew you hired. They unearthed an ancient Philistine temple of Dagon, and that in itself is an incredible find." The other man murmured in disgust, "Sure, they found it, but they didn't finish the job, according to our agreement." This was Mr. Pippin. I wonder if he was inspired by Lord of the Rings Pippin, or if this is just happy coincidence. A very small, nervous man who fidgeted and twitched a lot. I imagine he's not really anything else like that in him, though. Otherwise, as you will see, of course. He fidgeted and twitched a lot, and was very hard to get along with. Mr. Cooper asked him, how could they finish the job when you fired them? Mr. Pippin glared at Dr. Cooper for issuing such a challenge. They were dismissed because they refused to go back to the site. They were a cowardly bunch, afraid of their own shadows, wanting more protection, more money. Protection from what? Mr. Pippin seemed unwilling to answer. Have you encountered anything strange or dangerous out there? For instance, ghosts, bandits, marauders, they said. Mr. Pippin rumbled. They were cowards. If they're cowards, give them some more protection. Shit. Andrews cut in. Dr. Cooper, we're just trying to get something more for our money. Well, said Dr. Cooper, I would say you're getting quite a bit for your money. We've picked up where the last crew left off, and we've found the original image of Dagon himself. We've mapped the walls. We've uncovered and unearthed pottery, papyri, utensils, everything a curator could want. Mr. Pippin blurted out, but you haven't uncovered everything. Dr. Cooper looked Mr. Pippin right in his beady little eyes and said, meaning, I haven't found whatever it is you want. Isn't that right? Mr. Pippin looked away from Dr. Cooper's penetrating gaze and muttered, We agreed we wouldn't discuss that. Dr. Cooper waited until Mr. Pippin was looking at him again, and then said, I'm an archaeologist, Mr. Pippin. I'm after biblical knowledge, something of eternal value. If it's a treasure hunter you want, I said nothing about a treasure, Pippin snapped. Dr. Cooper calmly finished his sentence. You can keep all your money and hire someone who's after the same spoils you are. Mr. Andrews stepped in. No, gentlemen. This is really unnecessary. Dr. Cooper, yes, I must admit you're doing a splendid job as an archaeologist. And really, we couldn't ask for better. It's just that Mr. Pippin has invested a great deal of money, of my influence, and reputation, and we do have our expectations. And given reasonable time, I will meet those expectations, providing whatever you expect is even there to begin with. Oh, it's there, Pippin insisted. It has to be there. Dr. Cooper had had enough of this conversation for one day. He rose from his chair. Well then, if I do happen to find it, whatever it is, you will let me know, won't you? Dr. Cooper nodded a farewell, put on his hat, and went out the door, leaving the two businessmen alone to squabble about sellers, buyers, big deals, and money. As soon as he exited via the big front door, he saw his son Jay and his daughter Leela, excitedly bounding up the museum steps. Well, he said, what happened to all your Holy Land sightseeing? 14-year-old Jay, a son already developing the toughness of his father, looked grim. He handed Dr. Cooper a slip of paper. This message just came from Gath. Leela, strong and beautiful at 13, made a guess. I'll bet it's that extra guy, that Jerry. Bill and Jeff never did like having him along. Neither did I, Dr. Cooper admitted, unfolding the paper. Pippin and Andrews couldn't trust us to do the job unattended, I guess. His voice trailed off as he read the note. He checked his watch. Let's go. They piled into Dr. Cooper's Jeep. According to the message, something had happened out at the dig. It would be a long and grueling drive, but they could make it back before nightfall. The Jeep roared into the camp above Gath at dusk. Bill and Jeff were there, waiting anxiously for the Coopers' arrival. The extra man named Jerry was nowhere else to be seen. Is it Jerry? Dr. Cooper asked, climbing hurriedly out of his Jeep. We've lost him, Bill reported. Dr. Cooper grimaced in a way that showed he wasn't surprised, yet was concerned. They all rushed down to the site as Bill told Dr. Cooper everything that had happened, including their discovery of the mysterious pit. Pit? Dr. Cooper asked, his eyes narrowing. Right behind the altar site, said Jeff. I've never heard of any deep excavations under a Philistine temple. Well, it sure surprised us, said Bill. We were cleaning out around old Dagon and got him about half uncovered when this hole opened up. There must have been a very thin lid of stone over the top, and we accidentally broke it and it fell through. They descended into the narrow valley. Dr. Cooper's crew had accomplished much. They had managed to unearth the original walls and ancient temple of Dagon, the bizarre half-man, half-fish god of the Philistines. The old doorways were visible, and toward the sediment was the eerie stone image of Dagon himself, staring down at them with a fiery expression. But all this was of secondary importance to the Coopers and their crew at this moment. They passed it all by and went directly to the spot behind the fish god to examine the mysterious hole. Dr. Cooper lay on the ground and shined his flashlight deep into the shaft, carefully examining the walls. He did some scraping, some brushing, and then tossed a pebble in to get some idea of the depth. He was fascinated and visibly puzzled. Any idea what it is? Bill asked. Dr. Cooper shook his head. It doesn't make sense. It is man-made, but I've never known the Philistines to be such highly skilled quarrymen and tunnelers. So, what are we going to do? Jeff wanted to know. Where's that rope? Bill found it and handed it to him. Dr. Cooper examined the cut end. You're right, it didn't break, and it didn't tear. It was cut with a very sharp instrument. Dr. Cooper was distressed about the situation, and it showed on his face. Did you hear anything? Bill and Jeff knew the answer to that question, but they hesitated to say it. Bill started, knowing it was going to sound very weird. We heard something singing down there. Singing? That brought the curious look from Dr. Cooper they had expected. All they could do was nod. There's no other word for it, said Jeff. It was creepy, like nothing I've ever heard before. Was it a voice? The two looked at each other, then shook their heads. Didn't sound like a voice, said Bill. Maybe an animal of some kind. Jeff shook his head. No animal would know a precise melody like that. The thing sang real music, Doc, a real tune. What kind of melody? Well, Jeff tried to whistle a few notes, and Bill tried humming it. Jay and Leela stood there fascinated. It could have been funny, watching these two men trying to piece together music they had heard. But the melody they were recreating had such a sad, eerie sound to it that the Coopers could feel their nerves tingling. Sounds Eastern, Leela mentioned. A minor key. Yeah, said Bill. And then it went up. Again, he tried humming it. And again, Jeff tried whistling it. Suddenly, Jay noticed another note playing. He could hear 3 melodies, not just Bill's and Jeff's. Hey, wait a minute, he said quietly. Bill and Jeff stopped, but the melody did not. They all stood there silently in the gathering dark. They could all hear it. From somewhere in the rocky hills above them, a melody was playing slowly, mournfully. Did it sound like that? Dr. Cooper asked in a whisper. Well, said Bill, the tune's right, but that's a flute or something. Shepherd's flute, said Jeff. They listened another moment. The sound was moving slowly along the length of the valley. We'd better take a look, said Dr. Cooper. Bill grabbed his rifle and Jeff settled for a good-sized club. Dr. Cooper buckled on his .357 revolver. Stay with me, he told Jay and Leela. They followed the sound, which was somewhere in the hills on the east side of the valley, still moving, fading behind the large rocks, and then emerging again. Dr. Cooper, Jay, and Leela headed straight forward. Bill moved left, and Jeff moved right. Beneath their feet, the yellow grass crunched like a stiff brush, and the broken, jagged rocks made footing difficult. They moved upward, crouching between the boulders, listening for the sound, climbing high above the valley, gradually getting closer. The sound of the flute was still moving, getting further from the dig. Just then it stopped. The Coopers halted to listen. Nothing. Then, almost sounding out of place, a goat bleated, and then another. Dr. Cooper smiled, a faint smile. He continued up the hill, followed by Jay and Leela. A quick, quiet whistle to the left told them Bill was not far away, and another whistle came from Jeff off to the right. They found a small trail along the top of the ridge, and the bleating of the goats was very clear now. The Coopers walked along the path, moving past the towering rocks, looking this way and that. Somewhat relaxed, they rounded a corner and saw a small flock of goats, playing, meandering, and bleating. Aha! It must have been a goat herder, concluded Dr. Cooper. Yah! Came a shriek from above, and before Jay and Leela knew what was happening, a tangled blur of skins, rags, hair, and flailing arms dropped on their father, knocking him to the ground. The kids knew that the assailant, a wild little man, a crazed character with a crude wooden peg for one leg, would be no match at all for their father. But this little guy was sure determined, clinging to Dr. Cooper like an angry cat. Dr. Cooper flipped and twisted with great power, and the man went tumbling head over heels. But Dr. Cooper was barely on his feet before the peg-legged attacker came at him again, swinging a staff and still hollering. Hey, you, hold on, Jay shouted as he ran near, trying to grab the threatening character. Watch the staff, son, said Dr. Cooper, crouching to face the next attack. The little man swung the staff, and Dr. Cooper ducked as it whistled over his head once, then twice. And then, on the third try, he was able to grab it and give it a yank, and then trip the little man with a well-placed foot. The strange character went tumbling in the dust, but sprang back to his feet, his eyes full of fight and fear. Then he realized his hands were empty. Dr. Cooper now held the staff and tossed it to Jay, as Bill and Jeff arrived to help. little goatherd was beginning to realize he was far outnumbered. Dr. Cooper approached him, and he began to back away timidly. "If you could control yourself for a moment," Dr. Cooper said in a calm voice, "we'd like to have a word with you." The hairy little man in the goatskins didn't seem too willing to discuss anything, but suddenly, finding new courage, he stood his ground and began to rant and rave at Dr. Cooper, as if prophesying doom and destruction. "Invaders," he wailed, his eyes with fear, his finger pointing. "Desecrators, you will be the doom of us all." Dr. Cooper noticed a small carved flute hanging from the goatherder's belt. "We heard the song of your flute." "The song of Harafa." The goatherd pointed down the hillside to the dig below. "That is his home. You have invaded it. You have angered him." He smiled a wicked smile and continued. "And one of you has already felt his anger, yes?" Dr. Cooper had to raise his hand to hold Bill and Jeff back. "How do you know that?" The little man's eyes widened with awe. "I heard him singing." "It means he is pleased. And how can he be pleased but to eat a man?" Dr. Cooper studied the weathered face for a moment. "He sings that song when he eats a human being? What is he, some kind of animal?" "He is a god," said the goatherd. "The terror of him fills us all. We serve him or we die." He touched his flute and added, "I play to appease him. If I play his song, he lets me pass. And he eats men. Only when he is angry." The little man tapped on his wooden peg. "Once I made him angry." He laughed mysteriously at his misfortune. "And now we have learned to appease him and worship him with offerings. And he does not trouble us." The little man's eyes filled with fear as he said, "But you have angered him, and you cannot appease him. He will devour you. He will devour us all. He is Harafa." Jay and Leela knew the word Harafa. They whispered to each other, "The fearsome one." Dr. Cooper asked, "Where can I find him?" The old goatherd laughed mockingly. "You have invaded his home. You must meet him, and when you do, you will have no more questions. There is none other like him, and no one can stand before him. He fills the earth. He carries the heavens on his shoulders. His might is boundless. Unforgiving is he, unforgiving and cruel. And you will feel the edge of his sword. For you, there is no escape." "That was a good speech," Bill quipped. "That was very good. You do that well." "You laugh now," the little goatherd shouted angrily. "But you will feel the terror of our God, just as I did." The man looked at his peg leg again. "I saw nothing. I heard nothing. I expected nothing." Then his eyes narrowed. His voice lowered into a whisper, and he trembled as he recalled. "But it was Rafa, the darkest of shadows, rising out of the earth without a sound. There was nowhere to flee from him. I felt nothing, only that my leg was gone." Dr. Cooper and the others were beginning to believe this frightened little man. They could feel their stomachs starting to tighten. Dr. Cooper finally stepped forward and returned the goatherd's staff. "Go in peace." "But will you leave his home?" the goatherd asked fearfully, pointing once again towards the dig in the valley. "Harafa has taken one of our men. We can't leave without him, even if we have to face your God and his wrath." "One? Oh, you'll face him all right," the man said with great assurance. "Remain here, And you will. He took one more look in the direction of the dig. Not me. Oh no. Not me. He spun and darted away like a frightened bird, herding and shooing his goats along the trail. Dr. Cooper looked at his children and his crew, and then they all looked toward the valley. They knew they had to return, but now they could not help wondering what dangers might be waiting for them. Without a word, they started walking back. And that concludes chapter 1. So what did you think? Was that not a pretty good intro? And hey, it gets even better. So yeah, compared to stuff like Patch the Pirate and VeggieTales, the religion is toned way down. So yeah, but it'll have its moments, but it doesn't really go, as far as I remember, it doesn't go too deeply into it. But yeah. So if you liked it, like, comment, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Stay tuned for the next video, and I will see you there. Until then, my friends, stay safe and farewell.